Thank you so much for logging in and attending the Future of E-commerce, Progressive Web Apps, JAMstack, and Headless with Crafter Software and Divante. I'm Amanda Cunningham. I'm Digital Marketing Manager at Crafter. And today our two panelists are Russ Danner, VP of Products here at Crafter Software, and Zelimir Gusak at Divante.
Okay, thanks so much, Amanda. So I'm going to start with a really quick agenda. This is Russ. And what we're going to do is start with some quick introductions of Divante and Crafter Software. Then we're going to dive into headless architecture for e-commerce. Then we'll turn our focus to progressive web applications. And after that, we'll get really specific about Vue Storefront and Crafter CMS. On to some introductions, and Zelimir, I believe you like to go by Z, so we'll call you that. And why don't you get started with a brief introduction of Divante?
Yes, thank you very much, Russ. Hi, my name is Zelimir Gusak. Shorter and easier is going to be Z. Coming from Divante. At Divante, I work as an e-commerce consultant focusing on PWA products. So Divante, as a company, is a global e-commerce technology company that has a very strong focus on tech solutions around selling online. So everything we have been doing for the past 12 years has been revolving around e-commerce. We do e-commerce platforms, both B2B and B2C. We do marketplaces, CMS, PIM systems, and PWAs, of course. So Divante offers a healthy combination of services and its own products. We work mainly with leaders or future leaders of its industries, which are operating internationally and who usually have a pretty good understanding of the values of a digital itself.
And Crafter Software is the creator and primary contributor to the open source Crafter CMS project. At Crafter Software, we're breaking down the broken paradigms of traditional content management and replacing them with innovative solutions that allow authors, developers, and ops teams to work together without friction with solutions that are for modern architectures, tools, and process. And as we'll learn, Crafter CMS is a modern headless plus content management platform that makes it easy to support any channel, as well as provides authors with the visual and web-based editing tools that makes it easy for them to edit content and publish content. And with Crafter, developers can leverage those modern tools and platforms and process to build and deliver planet-scale elastic solutions that are hosted either with us as a SaaS solution or by you on the computing platform of your choice. So with that, let's jump into our topic for today, which is the future of e-commerce. Now, I've always found it best to start conversations about where we're heading by level setting with where many of us are. And for many of us, that is a place of traditional e-commerce platforms, which are primarily web only and provide very limited support for mobile and other channels, which brings us to one of the main pain points that organizations often feel when they run up against the limits of a traditional e-commerce platform, and that is limited support for multi-channel. Multi-channel is a major concern. Mobile has become a very dominant channel in e-commerce. And of course, we can visit web pages with these devices, but this doesn't really give us the best user experience, and we're not really able to take advantage of the native features of the device easily. And as we'll learn today, ease and experience of the customer are massive factors in driving conversions and creating loyalty with our customers. And beyond smartphones and similar mobile devices, we have new channels like digital assistants that are becoming ubiquitous. Our platforms need to be able to address these channels. And more importantly, our platforms need to give us the ability to address any channel as it arrives on the scene and begins to take root. Now, another pain point that we see with traditional e-commerce is that marketers and merchandisers often find that they don't have the flexibility to evolve or implement new business models. They are stuck with the prescribed models that are embedded in the platform. So again, just think of recent times here with COVID and how businesses have had to evolve. And you can see that, if you have a very rigid platform, as the conditions change, as market conditions change, as business models change, you need to be able to change with it. And we see some lack of flexibility with traditional e-commerce. Now, another common issue is scalability. You must be able to handle the traffic that you generate and offer users great experiences even under extreme loads. Traditional platforms have a very bad habit of being difficult to scale up and out. And traditional e-commerce platforms also tend to create a bit of friction between marketers and merchandisers. And this friction really comes from ownership over process and workflow issues surrounding the content and copy, as well as media that support the product. All of these teams need to be able to work within and around the catalog without stepping on each other's toes. And the last pain point here that I bring up is all of these capabilities that we've become familiar with within e-commerce in a traditional setting are all sourced by design by a single vendor, which makes it really difficult to innovate or sort of be flexible when you have to rely on a single vendor to meet your needs. All of the pain points that we've discussed stem from the monolithic architecture of e-commerce platforms, which we see here on the screen. Here we can see all of the services are built into a single system, including the CMS. And these services are clearly sourced by a single vendor and are typically backed by traditional relational databases, which are notoriously difficult to scale up or globally distribute. It's also plain to see here that the lack of multi-channel support arises from a baked-in web UI layer that assumes a traditional website and limits not only the channels that we can support, but also the development frameworks and processes that we can use. Now, by contrast, let's look at a headless e-commerce architecture, which has, based on experience, become the target architecture where organizations want to go. This is an answer to many of these issues. And here we see several fundamental changes in the architecture. Now, the key tenet of headless architecture is that there is no preconceived notions of what the UI or presentation tier is. It simply provides an API or APIs to be consumed by one or more external consumer applications. And this makes the system very mobile friendly and very multi-channel friendly. As we can see here, we've got different types of channels all coming to the same system. Another common change is a move away from a monolithic set of services to the use of many individual services. There are different names for this, microservices and so on, but the idea is to break down the back end into smaller services. So just looking at the architecture, we can see that multi-channel support is built in. And we're much more flexible because we can add integrations behind the scenes to support new business models. So if we need subscriptions or something else to deal with the changing conditions, we can add that service in and integrate it. Because we're API first, we can build with any development framework and use any process that we want. And we can vary these by channel as necessary. So not all types of applications or channels are going to need the same framework or the same process. Also, by breaking down the monolithic architecture into smaller services, we can scale and distribute the individual pieces more easily. And finally, because we do not have a monolithic solution, we can leverage a best of breed approach when it comes to the vendors and services that we use on the back end. And all of this combines to solve many of the pain points that we talked about with a traditional e-commerce architecture. Now, let's briefly turn our attention to CMS in the context of headless e-commerce. The CMS capabilities in e-commerce enable marketers to have target market-specific control over copy and media of products and SKUs and the content that supports them. The CMS gives marketers control over channel-specific customer journeys to drive upsells, cross-sells, and conversions. And CMS also enables marketers to do brand marketing around the products with supporting content like articles, testimonials, tutorials, and so on. And finally, it helps marketers gather and leverage metrics and do experimentation to drive further success. Now, this is a headless CMS in the context of an architecture that we've been discussing. Crafter is what we call a headless plus CMS, and it adds a few things to the formula that I want to address because I think they are important to success when you try to implement this kind of architecture. Now, first, a headless plus CMS adds in-context editing and preview to the CMS. APIs are great for programmers and applications that consume APIs, but marketers need to be able to see and edit the content that they are producing in context with all the other content and products easily and efficiently. And a headless CMS or headless plus CMS also offers server-side rendering components to the platform. Marketers care deeply about SEO, and server-side rendering support helps guarantee reliable, predictable SEO results, even when developers use frameworks on the bleeding edge. And headless plus CMS fits right into your CI/CD DevOps processes and environments, making it easy to move code and content between environments and support a lot more parallel development. Again, think about introducing new features, new channels. First mover advantage is a key principle here, and time to market matters, and this helps with that. And finally, headless plus CMS systems like Crafter CMS are cloud native and scale up to meet any demand elastically and scale globally to meet customers with targeted personalized experiences wherever they are. So this is a headless plus architecture with respect to the CMS. Okay, now we've looked at headless architecture as it applies to e-commerce and how it solves many of the pain points with traditional e-commerce platforms. What we want to do now is focus on one of the channels that is currently becoming the most dominant channel, and that's apps. Today, there are 3.5 billion smartphone users in the world. And by the end of 2021, that number will grow to nearly 4 billion. It's staggering. And with the growth of device use and the adoption of 5G, we can expect that the use of mobile devices and apps to grow, of course, and become more and more dominant, but also this is a platform that is really, really ripe for a lot of innovation going forward because there's a lot of computing power, a lot of capabilities on this device. And the addition of that powerful network is going to mean a lot for us. We also know that the world's changing. So with this in mind, what I want to do is turn things over to Z and have him take us through a bit of background on apps, different ways we can develop them and how we can make that decision. So Z?
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Well, the numbers are really staggering when you take a look at the mobile usage and the penetration and all of it. It's really amazing. I mean, it is official. The world has gone mobile, and our feature phones have really gone a long way. Can you remember the time when we used to use them just for calls? Those old phones that we used to have, and then you had to take your digital camera with you in case you want to take some photos. And of course, you had to get back home to your computer if you wanted to send some emails. How utterly impractical, right? So nowadays, we use our smartphones for all those applications and more. Smartphones today, I mean, they have literally brought the world closer together, kept us informed, and opened new opportunities to us, such as shopping on the go. This is what we're talking about. So with the development of technologies, today we are seeing a few different approaches to mobile experiences. Well, actually quite a few, but let's take a look at some of those. When we talk about the mobile websites, I mean, it's basically the same as any other website. It uses browser-based HTML pages that can be accessed by handheld devices and tablets. Unlike a website built for the desktop viewing, the mobile site is designed to appear on a much smaller so-called handheld device. It's a customized version of a regular website that is used specifically for mobile. Then we have native apps. Native apps, on the other hand, are, well, something completely different. They're usually downloaded from stores. So we're talking about App Store, Android Store, Windows, Huawei Store. They're installed on a mobile device and inaccessible within a browser. Native apps are written in the language of the operating system of the exact device they're installed on. So apps are also pretty much separate entity from the company's website, but often they're used to supplement the brand in some way, to work with their audience, and so on. So what we have on a totally, I would say different end, but yes, different end, are mobile web apps. Mobile web apps look very much like native apps. They feel like it. They kind of have a look and feel of native apps, but they're built to offer fast speed. And with the help of HTML and CSS, mobile web apps are accessible within mobile web browsers, and they can be easily launched from the browser. So unlike Android-based or iOS-based products that leverage sophisticated and complex mobile browsers, mobile web apps are far better and inexpensive alternative. So let's go and talk a little bit about progressive web apps, as they are, well, they're basically an evolution. First off, they are built with a mobile-first approach. meaning everything around them is actually built with the mobile in mind. As we said, the world has gone mobile. It's a fact. When building those PWAs, when building those apps, we on Divante, we rigorously follow Google guidelines contained in UX Retail Playbook. It's an amazing resource that actually has a lot of good meat over there, worth checking, definitely. This retail playbook and following all those guidelines enables us to tackle the mobile conversion gap. There's a question right now. So what's a mobile conversion gap? It's actually rather obvious and easy. Traffic on mobile accounts for almost like 2/3 of the overall traffic, but less than 1/3 of the revenue. So that's a conversion gap right there. So we fight it, as I said, in the way that we make sure that the whole buying experience, the whole buying process is perfectly suited for mobile devices. So people don't have a need to go to their desktop computers and kind of buy over there. So if you take a look at some other benefits, for instance, so one of the most important benefits that influences so many things is definitely speed. Extreme speed is something that is usual for progressive web apps, and with it you get a really short page loading times, which is amazing and much needed for increasing revenue. That's for sure. Offline readiness is a possibility to use your app even in the areas with very weak signal or even with no network connectivity at all. Push notifications, so they offer a bit of a native app look and feel. Also, we have home screen icons, so which is basically an ability to save your the icon of your e-commerce to the website or to the home screen of the user. Also, multi-platform approach is something that enables you to build once and run on any device, meaning you use the same code base for users that's going to use the desktop, tablet, mobile phone. So pretty much the same thing. If we're going to talk a little bit more about benefits, we would switch to another slide. So first of all, let's talk about shortened time to market. So just to kind of, how should I put it? PWA is basically just a web link. So there are no geographic restrictions whatsoever regarding the reach. So there is a total freedom from app stores. People do not have to go to app stores, like spend some time there and realize whether they want to use that app or not, use it once and then just kind of forget about it. There is also no need to build and market separate apps in each of those stores like App Store, Google Play. There is no need to submit for review, which definitely significantly shortens time to market. In some cases, we've seen a shortening time even to 60 days. Like 60 days is really amazing. Reducing customer acquisition cost is very important. With PWA standard, you can build websites that will ask the users to install the app directly from the mobile browser. So users don't need to download anything, and in a situation like that, they will not be hesitant to try it. So there is no need for them to download any updates going further once they start using it. Also, there is a much higher probability of onboarding a user successfully from the website versus the native app. Along with that, you will definitely see a lower customer acquisition cost. If we take a look at the cost effectiveness, stores built with PWA save up to 75% of the cost of the native app. And here we are talking about both development and maintenance costs. With PWA, you simply don't have to make a separate native app. It's just enough to adjust your storefront and you're basically good to go. Reducing bounce rate is something that is really high on top of what we want to have with our store, with our users. There was a study from DoubleClick back in 2018 or 19, I think, that found that 53% of mobile site visits are abandoned if pages take longer than 3 seconds to load. So that's really a massive loss over there in just 3 seconds. So this study also found that the average load times over 3G connections for mobile sites is around 19 seconds, which is like really crazy. Yes, today we mostly have 4G connections, which are faster, that's for sure, but still. So just to add to the topic, PWAs are mobile first oriented and extremely lightweight when you compare them to native apps. And at the same time, they provide, well, pretty much the same level of interactivity. On average, when you take a look at the loads and installs, PWAs are 15 times faster, could be 15 times faster. Going further, engagement and conversions, we certainly want to boost that. PWAs are capable of delivering an immersive experience. This is in part due to their full screen capabilities, as well as easy access and web push features. All of these combined serve as a great engagement and conversion tool. Boosting revenue, we've mentioned this already. Shoppers are moving to mobile, we have established that, and retailers that aren't able to convert that traffic into revenue will certainly lose out on significant sums of money. Users shifting to mobile are no reasons for retailers to lose money. Since progressive web apps combine features offered by most modern browsers with the benefits of native mobile experience, it gives your business an incremental revenue boost. Marketing ROI. Well, PWAs work offline, allowing the user to keep on browsing even without an internet connection, as I have already mentioned. With any other web store, a user simply drops out, and that's it. Therefore, PWAs are offering an amazing level of engagement and re-engagement. Furthermore, what was previously reserved specifically for mobile apps, today you basically can have with PWAs as well. So you get a less noisy channel, you get a click-through rate that is almost 10%, you reduce customer drop-offs, because remember, we managed to keep them engaged in our app even when we don't have a connection. Also, they can be triggered by almost any event. Rather powerful, right? SEO ranking. I mean, Google SEO ranking is immensely important for any e-com site. Search engines view PWAs as websites, which is absolutely important because basically it means they are easily indexed. For comparison, native apps are not searchable. So this is very, very important difference. Also, what is absolutely important is running your stores without any breaks. Continuing that speed topic that we brushed over with faster loading times, PWAs reduce server loads, so your stores won't crash or slow down during periods of intense traffic. So when you have Black Fridays, when you have really a lot of load on your system, you're not going to have a situation where your system is going to crash. Or let's say you're going to have really not as much of those situations. And making clients loyal, this is what comes maybe even first, not at the end, but yeah. We all know how important it is to make your clients loyal. With PWAs, you can add native app functionalities to your website. This will make your clients more aware of your brand and obviously more loyal. On top of that, you can integrate your PWA with headless loyalty software like openloyalty.io or something similar, which will add even more value to your app and certainly more value to your users. I'm going to hand it over to Russ back now.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about a recipe for progressive web apps. And I want to talk about that in the context of a full recipe top to bottom, and not specifically the app, but top to bottom in terms of developing and delivering this. So all the way from the application to the operational components of the stack. So I like to think of a recipe as starting with just identifying the ingredients, the types of ingredients that we're going to need. From here, let's start with our base to our recipe, and that's clearly the architecture. And from there, we'll need to choose a development stack, okay? And based on that, we'll choose a platform on which to operate the solution. And once we've done that, we'll need to fit in our processes, which we're going to use to develop and operate the solution. So these are the components of our recipe. Now, with respect to architecture, we need no introduction here. We've been talking about that at length during today's event, and that's headless architecture. We can see just how great the benefits of this kind of system are. Now, on that, we'll need to choose an application development stack, and for this, I've chosen the JAMstack. Okay, so the JAMstack is an acronym, and JAM stands for JavaScript, APIs, and Markup. It's not a specific technology. It's a prescription for how to use specific types of technology together. Now, you may already see why this stack fits so well with headless architecture and some of our planet scale delivery objectives. APIs are a key architectural feature of headless design, and JavaScript and Markup are easily distributable by CDNs and elastic dynamic backends like Nuxt, as we'll learn later, and Crafter CMS. Now, like I said, JAM stands for JavaScript, APIs, and markup. And I want you to remember that this is not a specific technology. It is a prescription for how to use specific types of technology. So let's look at some of those options. Okay, in the J or the JavaScript portion of the framework, you can leverage any front-end framework you like, right? Any JavaScript-based front-end framework, obviously. And the most popular frameworks here are things like React, Angular, and Vue. And in a minute, we're going to turn things back over to Z to learn why his team chose Vue and Nuxt as the framework of choice for their PWA application, Vue Storefront. So we're going to get a little deeper on that topic. Now, closely related to JavaScript is rendered markup. And markup can be rendered on the client or on the server. And as we've discussed previously, server rendered markup is preferred for SEO. And for this, you have static site generators with platforms like Gatsby and Hugo, and you have server-side rendering platforms like Nuxt and Nuxt and others. And Crafter CMS works with either of these approaches, either static site generation or server-side content generation. Now, the back end of the JAMstack is APIs, or the A in JAM. And what plugs into this portion of the stack depends on what you're building. In the case of an e-commerce application, you can expect commerce type APIs from platforms like Commerce Tools and BigCommerce and Shopify and so on. You can also expect content APIs to be sourced from platforms like Crafter CMS, and we'll see some others as well in some of these slides. Now that we have a better idea of what the JAMstack is and why we want to use it, I'm going to turn things back over to Z to talk about why they chose Vue and Nuxt as the JavaScript portion of their application architecture.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Russ. So this is a question we get asked a lot. So what was the reason for choosing Vue.js in the first place? So let's quickly go through some of the main reasons that made us choose this path. So the first thing was certainly a learning curve. We initially looked at two most obvious options out there. So React and Vue.js, obviously. There's also an Angular, which is actually probably more suited maybe for some enterprise options, bigger systems, and so on. So being a JavaScript, React.js leverages on all the basic concepts and advantages of JS itself. So you just code the interface with some JSX injections. It's more familiar with desktop, mobile app developers for mobile and desktop, for desktop and mobile app developers than for front-end devs coming from a classical setup such as HTML plus CSS. This kind of approach is perfectly fine, but considering the e-com talent pool with many developers coming from classical platforms such as Magento, PrestaShop, and so on, well, those guys are looking for something more productive, something more, well, maybe we can even say more interesting. So there comes Vue.js. It's sort of a mid-ground between Angular complexity and React simplicity. Additionally, Vue.js has got one of the best doc libraries available out there. So that's also a huge plus. Internally, we concluded that the learning curve for React is, well, much steeper. It's clear. And let's be honest, Vue.js is, well, way more fun to work with. The templating system along with the mixins gave us also foundation for the overall framework, which is pretty elastic, easy to understand, and pretty easy to extend further. Vue.js ecosystem is pretty coherent, which is important. It is actually fairly easy to choose the right solution for the problem at hand. So for developers, it feels more like a Python/.NET than Java approach, actually. So the next thing is architecture and performance. The next thing that actually make us choose Vue.js. Vue.js uses the same virtual DOM approach like React, with performance being pretty similar. Vuex implements much of the Redux state management concepts, and with Nuxt, you have a full SSR support. Additionally, SSR is supported natively as well. Since we wanted to be as SEO friendly as possible, quality SSR or server-side rendering support was extremely important. When it comes to tools, you can pretty much use all the modern tooling like Webpack, Babel, TypeScript support, and much more. Even JSX components can be used with Vue.js without much hassle. And the last thing on our list of main reasons why we went with Vue is certainly popularity. When you compare React and Vue.js, it's pretty obvious that both frameworks are well, pretty popular. Of course, React ecosystem is much bigger, but Vue.js ecosystem might be growing maybe a little bit faster. The reason could lay in the fact that React is longer on the market and its user base might be a bit saturated. I don't know. Actually, right now, it's pretty clear, long gone are the days when the JavaScript frameworks came and go. Vue.js has been around for quite some time now, from 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and it's getting better every day. So these are pretty much the reasons why we went with Vue.js. But at the end of this, I gotta offer a bit of a disclaimer, because somebody might call these reasons in some aspect a little bit subjective. But please bear in mind that we are not trying to compare or conclude whether one framework is better than the other one. So nothing like that. Simply put, from the very beginning, our aim was to create the elastic and easy to use e-commerce framework for rapid development. That was the main aim. So right now, let's talk a little bit about Nuxt. So being a high-level framework built on top of Vue to help build production-ready Vue applications. So today, Nuxt is basically an industry standard, let's be honest, if you are talking about Vue.js ecosystem. So whenever there is a bigger project built in Vue.js, Nuxt is almost always used, like almost always. And there are good reasons for that. For starters, Nuxt provides a lot of functionalities out of the box, so there is no need to build things from scratch. Routing can be a bit of a long process. I mean, developers know that, but not with Nuxt, as it offers a much needed pre-configuration. So really, what's not to like there? So pre-configured routing, starting context, serving, SCSS, and potentially the most important, again, server-side rendering. That is, if you care about SEO, which we all do, of course. It is possible to go without Nuxt, of course, but it simply does not make any sense, at least for us, as it saves so much time. For instance, right now on our typical project that we build, a project of moderate size, we realized that it just using Nuxt just saves like a month of custom development and configuring of all those features from scratch that Nuxt actually provides out of the box. So it's a no-brainer. Plus, Nuxt has an amazing documentation. So not only that it provides all those features, but those features are well documented and pretty elastic, or should I say flexible in configuration. So it really is a winning concept, that's for sure. So I mean, there is no need to add additional labor when you have everything sorted out. And we got one documented code that jumpstarted the whole project. Interestingly, there is actually something similar with React. It's a project called Next, and it's pretty much the same as Nuxt. So in most aspects. So yeah, there are some additional advantages to using Nuxt. I'm absolutely sure that some of you might add right now, but these are some main points why Nuxt was chosen on our end in the first place. I'm going to turn it over to Russ now, who will take us through the rest of the recipe.
Okay, thanks so much, Z. That was really great. And I'm sure a lot of people here are going to go check out that platform, especially in the context of e-commerce. Now, given that, I think we can assign some technology to the JAMstack portion of our recipe, right? And because Z was so convincing there, we're gonna put Nuxt in there as the JavaScript framework, and also you can see Node.js as basically a backend for that, a server for that, and Crafter CMS to provide content in that context. Now, with respect to our platform, which is down at the bottom of our recipe here, we want to be able to build all of these new services so that they deploy and scale natively anywhere on the planet in a cloud native sort of elastic fashion. So to do this, we're going to leverage technologies like CDNs, including things like AWS CloudFront, Akamai. There are many of these, and most of them very cost effective, as well as other platforms like Kubernetes and Docker, which Crafter runs in, as well as Node and other platforms, to basically help us deploy the server-side rendering components and any service components of our architecture. And these platforms are designed from day one to deploy and scale globally and make it much easier to manage and operate these platforms, even at scale. And then finally, we're going to need to assign some process and tools to help us develop and operate the solution. So here we can expect to leverage technologies like Git, Jenkins in a content-rich environment, tools like Crafter to help bring together an iterative, agile development process based on automation. Now, in a content-rich environment, we would call this dev content ops. In a say like a non-content rich environment, that's just DevOps. But where you have a lot of content, dev content ops. Now that we've looked at a general recipe for PWA applications, I want to turn our focus to e-commerce. And fortunately, as he mentioned earlier, Divante has developed a very highly extensible, flexible solution called View Storefront. And it plugs directly into this architecture here, which we can see in the JAMstack portion, and makes it much more simple to get up and going. So what I want to do is turn things over to Z so he can walk us through View Storefront, what it is, how it works, and so on. So Z?
Absolutely, thanks. Well, for starters, I'm pretty sure some of you have already heard about View Storefront. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the solution we've built within Divante. For starters, a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't want to turn this into a disclaimer presentation, but I have like very nice news. View Storefront has actually spun out of Divante a few weeks ago. It has become an independent company, with Divante being a premium preferred integrator, and we also have a shared structure when it comes to ownership. But it has really grown like in amazing ways, and it's really amazing. View Storefront basically, as a product, is a headless and backend agnostic e-commerce progressive web app. So View Storefront is the world's fastest growing open source e-commerce platform. If you go check us on the GitHub, you will see over there that I'm telling the truth. At this point, I believe it has almost 8,000 stars on GitHub. It has over 250 live implementations. Some of those implementations are done by us, a good portion of them, but some of them are also done by some of our partners. We have over 100 partners that are actually building live sites on View Storefront. Also, we have around or over 4,000 community members. So we have built an amazing ecosystem around this product, and it's just it's skyrocketed this year. I gotta say, last year, I gotta say that. But let's see what this product actually offered to us. So View Storefront, as I said, a progressive web application, so a headless frontend with very powerful API capabilities. So it is a single app that provides a unified user experience on different devices. So be it Mac OS, Windows, Android, you name it. So a built-in service workers, cache delivers, offline functionality, and super fast performance. Of course, mobile-first UX makes shopping smooth and easy. It's all about mobile-first. We have mentioned it so many times already. If you look a little bit further, the fact that View Storefront uses headless architecture allows it to be connected with any e-commerce platform, so any backend. So it can be a front-end PWA for commerce tools, Magento, Shopper, Shopify, so you name it. So there is almost no limitation to what kind of a backend can be plugged in. There is only a need for API connection, and that's it. So you basically get to use a powerful backend system that satisfied your business needs, the business needs of your company, and connect it with a beautiful front end in a form of progressive web app. So no need to use systems that provide both of these in one monolith pack, which is a limitation to your business right from the start. When you look a little bit further into CMS, modern CMSs are no longer in a pack with monolith software. The modern ones. Well, they are built and consumed as a separate product. Most of new CMSs, such as Crafter, are fun for developers. They allow building modern digital experience apps with their favorite tools, languages, frameworks, and so on. As you realize, the solutions we are talking about today, so in the same aspect, the Crafter and View Storefront are actually a lot about them is actually revolving around the experience the developers have around it, working with it, and kind of having a good feel while using it. Because happy developer is a good developer. Happy developer is going to provide very good products. That is for sure. At the same time, CMSs, also modern CMSs, offer user-friendly authoring tools, allowing content managers to easily create and manage content, which is also extremely important because we do not really want to have developers working on day-to-day tasks on our CMS. That is for sure. If you take a look at the checkout, I mean, every e-com solution needs to have quality payment option. In monoliths, those often came pre-built, or you kind of just use them as sort of plugins and so on. In a headless setup, those also come as separate products, again, connected through APIs and consumed independently. So in View Storefront, you can modify your payment gateway with PWA without creating the integration code by yourself. Our community member, as a matter of fact, our community members created some really cool docs and reference implementation of payment modules. So anybody can use them as a basis for their own projects. Lastly, any third party or external service can be plugged in using our APIs. So be it augmented reality solutions, chatbots, personalization solutions, or you name it. These kind of headless setups offer you an amazing flexibility and independence because you get to choose a product that is the right fit for your business need at the specific point in time. Meaning, if those needs changes because your business has grown, scaled up, and so on, you are free to choose another product and connect it with your API, the product that is going to fit your needs at that point, without a need to kind of choose like replace the huge chunks of the system or system in full. Within the same company, the needs from different divisions are, well, sometimes miles apart. So why should anybody settle for a solution that comes with monoliths? Because they basically impose a set of restrictions that, again, could hurt your business in the long run. We have talked quite a bit about VSF, View Storefront PWA frontend, but there is also an option to go fully custom, and that is what we also can offer within Divante. Well, not exactly full, because there is really no reason not to use a VSF Next architecture as a basis, since it's an amazing, it is really an amazing foundation to base your build upon. So when it comes to custom PWA frontend implementation, we did it so far twice. We did Shopper 6 and we did SAP Spartacus, and we also right now have additional one in progress. So just a few words about each. Shopper 6 was actually done in collaboration with Shopper engineers. So we built the only official open source frontend for Shopper 6. It has been designed with a headless approach, so it enhances and elevates any shopper-based e-commerce business. Spartacus is a little bit different. It's a lean and Angular-based JavaScript storefront for SAP's Commerce Cloud. It actually relies on SAP Commerce Cloud APIs and CMS content to function. It is 100% API driven, and it is intended to be run in a headless fashion. So if for any reason there is a need to go custom way, here at Divante, we have an experience and know-how as well as processes in place to help you out. So feel free to reach us out.